The podcast you are about to listen to contains at least one of the following: strong language, disturbing topics, abusive opinions, generally things that aren't appropriate for little kids or overly sensitive people. So, if any of that stuff's going to get your nose out of joint, this is your chance to turn it off. Welcome to I Had to Say It, the podcast where I not only say the things I need to say, but the things I think you need to hear. And your feelings, they're not a factor. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of I Had to Say It. So we're going to start out by saying, as we do, to Josh, B-Word, Iceman, Jason, Miss Aaron, Mike, Tabby, Javier, Fitz McShane, El Jefe, El Devlin, El Morte, the guys at the Weathered Report, and to Billy G. Thank you guys for your continued support, and thank you for your understanding of the fact that I didn't put out an episode last week, even though I promised I was going to try and do something if I was feeling better after I posted that initial apologetic little blurb on Tuesday. The simple fact of the matter is I actually underestimated how sick I actually was. So to bring you guys up to speed and do a real quick recap as to why y'all didn't get the late in the week episode I talked about last week. Okay, Cliff Notes version is, it turns out cat scratch fever is a real fucking thing. I was completely blindsided by this. To make a long story somewhat bearable, what had happened was on Thursday night I was playing with our cat, and he got a little carried away, and he missed the little mousy feathery thing on a stick and ran into my leg. Didn't intentionally bite me. Wasn't like he sank all of his teeth into me. But he caught me with one of his fucking pointy-ass teeth, and it punched a hole in my leg. I, being a stubborn jackass and someone who's actually been bitten by a cat before, didn't think two things about it. Cleaned it off with a little rubbing alcohol, put some Neosporin on it, put a Band-Aid on it, and went to bed. Now, Thursday we had a thing going where I was outside all day in jeans and a heavy polo and probably overheated some. So when I got sick on Saturday, I really didn't give it a second fucking thought. And I ran a fever all day Saturday and ran a fever all day Sunday. So Father's Day was a whole lot of fun for me. I was semi-conscious for all of it and didn't really think that, that it was even Father's Day. It was just more like grah. And then Monday, I wound up taking the day off of work, going to the doctor. The doctor looked at, and I was fortunate in the fact that I didn't put pants on when I went to the doctor. I just went in shorts, and he looked at my leg and was like, "What's going on here? This looks infected." And I told him what happened. He goes, "Oh, well, you probably got, there's a bacteria that's in all cats' mouths, and it's something where if you get it and it gets into your system, it could be, pretty bad. So we're going to put you on this antibiotic for you. And if it's not better in a couple of days, I want you to go to the emergency room and get an IV antibiotic." So that was my Monday. Tuesday rolls around. I'm starting to feel a little bit better after I got my first couple of doses of the antibiotic in my system. And, I go to work and I go through my day and don't think much of it. Go to bed, get up, do the same thing again Wednesday. And, for anybody who might have missed it, last Wednesday, you can go back and catch the replay on it. I was invited by Iceman to come on the Motor Cop Chronicles Midweek News, which was fun. We had a good time. I was feeling pretty damn good, actually. The antibiotics were kicking in, and I was feeling pretty good about life. Now, the thing about that is, after we got done recording the episode and I went to go get ready for bed, and I took my socks off, and I looked down at my leg, and my calf had swollen to the size of a fucking cantaloupe. So I said, okay, this is bad, and I hauled my happy ass to the ER that night. And subsequently wound up getting an IV antibiotic, and they changed what oral antibiotics I was on for a broader spectrum thing to make sure I didn't get like MRSA or anything else. And so I've been doing that and daily IV treatments with IV antibiotics for total of a 10-day regimen of doing this. So it's like every morning, 7 a.m., I'm at the hospital getting dosed up by these guys. So just to kind of bring you up to speed on where things were at, we're at the point where I have 6 more of these things to do, and it's going to be a thing. So, however, I'm feeling pretty better. My leg is back down to a normal human size, or a relatively normal human size. Anybody that's known me for a long time and has actually seen me in a pair of shorts will tell you my legs don't necessarily qualify as standard human legs. They're more like tree trunks with a keg balanced on top of them. So, yeah, but they're normal. It's normal sized for me. Downside is the healing process is a bitch, and it's itchy as hell, and it's driving me crazy. But, it is what it is, and we carry on, and we do as we do. And meanwhile, I'm just going through the motions, trying to get through life. And on the other side of that coin, yes, I am feeling somewhat better. I'm not 100% yet. I'll be the first to admit that. These infusions I don't know what it is about them, but I don't know if I'm still run down or what, but they seem to be taking a lot out of me because I'm getting tired earlier and earlier, and I'm doing less and less in a day, even though I'm starting to physically feel better. And like I said, the signs of infection are going down in my leg and all this other stuff. So I think I'm doing okay. But ultimately, here's where we sit. I'm feeling better, and I'm ready to make that everybody else's fucking problem. So with that being said, I'm not going to actually harp on any one specific thing. I've got more of a broad general rant to go into this point because, honestly, it was kind of a slow week last week, comparatively. Compared to how things have been going in the world, it was kind of a slow week. You know, no massive military movements other than the standard posturing that's been going on. Politics are still pretty much standard how they go. Out of the left, it's been more of the same disingenuous, don't believe your eyes, utter. I mean, this is kind of just me freestyling into what I want to talk about here, where it's like, I honestly don't understand, and it's not even a matter of left versus right. It's us versus them at this point. Everybody, regardless of where they sit, how is it that people are still willing to accept the treatment we are receiving from the so-called, political elite, from the people that are supposed to be representative of us? They are supposed to work for us. And I know I've talked about this before, but if anything, the last fucking week and a half has just shown me how little they actually think of the general population of the country. And to a certain extent, that's fair, because I'm going to be honest, I have a very low opinion of a huge portion of the population of this country as well. And maybe it's for some of the same reasons, because they look at this bunch of weak, easily led, spineless, gutless, begging for other people's approval masses, and they say, wow, these people are worthy of contempt because they're not really willing to stand up and be fucking men, so why should we show them any kind of respect or dignity? And honestly, this may make me a bastard, but I've never denied it. That's kind of how I feel too. The only difference is I'm not in a position where I can manipulate and capitalize on these fucking sheep, smooth brain, fucking tapioca pudding for mind, worthless, gutless, spineless fucking people that are out there. And honestly, maybe it's a flaw in my moral character. I don't think I would if I were in a position to do that. I mean, everybody likes to think they're going to be the good guy in the story, and nobody wants to admit they might be the villain. Frankly, I'm perfectly comfortable being the villain in other people's stories. I mean, the villains have always been the more identifiable character to me. But anyway, that's just kind of where we're at, though. In the last week, we have heard official statements from the White House, from the bobble-headed Jamie Foxx and drag-looking press secretary, who has been just notoriously terrible at her fucking job for the entire tenure in there. She's literally the second worst DEI hire in D.C. right now. I'll let you guess who the first is. But ultimately, this broad came out and said that all the videos of the fucking fact that we are being guided by a Roomba on two legs, hypothetically. I mean, everybody knows Joe's not the one calling the shots. He's not the one making the decisions. He's not the one pointing the fucking cannons, or having the cannons pointed at us, more accurately. Because let's face it, it's really seeming like we're back in 1985 and we're worried about the big bad Ruskies coming to get us. And the thing about that is, it's ironic because it's the communists that are getting us back into beef with the Russians. So it's kind of funny in its own respect. And the fact that Putin's one of the guys standing up to the New World Order, one world government bullshit is really it's really interesting change of pace, considering the guy is like hardcore KGB. He's not the kind of person you want to fuck with, and he's definitely not the kind of person who you want going toe-to-toe with a fucking geriatric tapioca brain fucking muppet. So, yeah, we're not in a good place, and it's realistically very fucking enervating. But anyway, I digress. So KJP comes out, and she's talking about, oh, well, these are cheap fakes and deep fakes. And she's trying to make the claim that the multiple videos that have come out in the last week and a half of Biden just fucking wandering off. Again, Roomba on legs. That's all the fucking guy is. He was at a thing for D-Day and wandered off. He was in Normandy and he wandered off. He's supposed to be honoring soldiers and he's fucking sitting down. Now, granted, we do ourselves a disservice. Everybody made the joke that it looked like he was taking a shit. He was obviously trying to find a chair when he wasn't supposed to be sitting. If you look at it a little critically, the guy humiliates himself a fucking enough. We don't have to double down on the dumb shit that he's doing. All we gotta do is point out the obvious shit that he's doing. And it's gotten so bad at this point where they are literally telling you to disavow the knowledge and the information coming out of your own fucking eyes because that's lies and that's falsehoods and that's deep fakes and cheap fakes. No, there is multiple verifiable sources of this man being a geriatric fuck. And by geriatric, I'm talking early on, or not even early, but the early stages of fucking dementia, where he is, he's just hopeless. We do not project strength when this is what we point to as our fucking leader. And again, they just think you're going to, and sadly enough, there are tens of thousands, if not more, people out there that eat this shit up, and they will back him no matter what, and they're going to support the shit out of him. And even the ones that aren't like bought and paid shills, like all the social media fucks who are like, oh, I'm riding with Biden, and Gen Z is going to make this happen, and did it. Okay, first off, Gen Z, you're all a bunch of fucking retards until you can prove differently. Just the dumb shit I have seen come out of your fucking mouths. Oh, well, if there's a draft, I just won't go. Good luck with that. That's working out really well for all the guys in Ukraine that are trying to avoid getting drafted. The government is literally lying to them and telling them they're going to help them escape the draft, and then getting them, once they're in the vans, they're conscripted. So I don't think it's going to go any better for you fucks if Sleepy Joe sleepwalks us into World War III behind the promises of, oh, well, we're going to wipe out your college debt. Or, yeah, that's great. They're going to wipe out your college debt. Meanwhile, you're never going to be able to afford any property or own a home or have any kind of real life or future because you're going to own nothing because they're destroying our economy. I'm not saying it's a deliberate destruction of our way of life. I'm just saying if they were going to deliberately do it, they wouldn't have to do anything any fucking differently than what they're doing now. And to that effect, it's actually kind of one of those things where it's like, anybody who's listened to the show for any amount of time knows I'm not a fan of Trump. I am not a fan of that Cheeto-dusted fucker either. I don't like him on a personal level. I don't really care for his stance on things that are literally deal breakers for me, like the Second Amendment. He's the one who put the bump stock ban in place. He's the one who said, take the guns first, worry about due process second. I'm never going to let that one go. That's a deal breaker for me. I am no on the Cheeto. However, if he sticks to half of the shit he said he's floating, if he gets elected, we could be in a much better situation. He could actually conceivably make a dent in the tailspin that this country's in. He's been floating the idea, and he's doing a lot of this stuff to court libertarian voters. There's no doubt in my mind about that. They are the third biggest party in the country at this point. Enough people are starting to take that stance where it's like they're actually making a difference. Now, the libertarian candidate's a fucking joke, so we're not going to worry about him any. And they've got the debates coming up, which they refuse to extend an invitation to RFK, which is honestly, that's kind of pathetic because this man has enough of a following, enough of backing, and he would be great on the debate stage to get both of them. And I'm going to talk about the debate a little bit more because it's coming up, and I know there's a possibility that there will be podcasts like live streaming, live reacting to it. Who knows? I might get roped into being on one of those. It kind of depends on how the day's going and how I'm feeling. But anyway, so Trump's been saying these things where he's talking about like ending income tax and going back to supporting the federal government through a system of tariffs on imports, which that's how things used to work. And I think that would be wonderful. That would be lovely. One of the best economic stimuluses we could have in this country would be for the income tax to go the fuck away. And the other beautiful thing about that is it would shred the size of the federal government. They would have to cut back because they would lose almost $2 trillion of income if they switched over to a tax on or a tariff on imports as opposed to just taking our paychecks, which is honestly, that's a good thing too. I think less bureaucrats would be a wonderful status improvement for this country. Because let's face it, bureaucrats really aren't worth a fart in a high fucking wind. None of them. And yeah, that would be a wonderful thing if it actually comes to follow through. But here's my problem with Trump. And honestly, this is just me speculating here, but I feel like if they let him make it to the election, he's not Epstein in the process, and if we manage to keep all the illegals that the Democrats are actively trying to get on voter registries now, it's been proven 49 states have had evidence of the different DHS, any public aid offices handing out voter registration forms to illegals with no requirement for proof of citizenship when they're signing up to get their benefits. Now, this is something that the Democrats have been denying was the plan all along, but seems to be falling right in line with the conspiracy theory tinfoil hat shit of they're trying to enact voter replacement by bringing all these non-citizens who are completely beholden to the Democrats because they've been told from the get-go, we're the ones who want you here, we're the ones that are going to give you all your free shit. And so, of course, they're going to vote for Biden. That's what we've been seeing people interviewed as they cross the board and saying they're coming here and they're coming to vote for Biden because Biden let them in. It's literally, and of course, these are the things the White House is telling you to deny. Deny the evidence of your senses and believe what we tell you because we are the only source of truth in the fucking world. And sadly enough, it's like, if you listen to mainstream media and you listen to any of the major outlets out there or most of the social media platforms out there, you would believe this shit because that's the echo chamber. That's what they're repeating. All the globalist, retarded, socialist, commie bullshit. I don't know how these people got into a position where they were able to do it after communism has failed literally every fucking where it's been tried. They still keep pushing it, and it's still a global bullshit. But I digress. The thing I'm concerned about with Trump is, like, when he ran the first time, he ran on, I'm going to drain the swamp. I'm an outsider. I'm not one of these motherfuckers. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to take America back. We're going to make America great again. Now, me personally, I'm all for the sentiment of making America great again and putting America first. As in, I don't believe we should be involved in the affairs of any other fucking country. We should not be funding any foreign wars. We should not be financing foreign governments. I don't give a shit. We are not doing well enough that we can afford to be the world's fucking charity case where we are giving out money to everybody that comes along with their hat in their fucking hand. We are sending our young men and women to fight and die for other nations over other issues that have fuck all to do with us. Other than like the stuff I mentioned with Lindsey Graham talking about all the resources in Ukraine. And that's obviously all that matters to these fucking people. Because then you look at what's happening in, like, say, Idaho, where they're telling, hundreds of families of farmers that they can't water their crops because, we need to conserve water. Not that they're conserving water for any necessity, because we've had a record year for water and the water tables are all plenty high. All you got to do is look at the evidence of all the flooding that's been going on all around the country. There's no reason. They're conserving the water because they want to have it for drilling cobalt in Idaho. They're going to bankrupt and destroy these families in the name of getting cobalt out of the ground for fucking cell phones. Now, ultimately, while I'm all for capitalism, this is when the government gets involved and it becomes cronyism, and they're saying, it's free market capitalism, and you get all these retarded, mouth-breathing leftist motherfuckers who want to sit there, see, capitalism's failing, that's why everything's falling apart, and socialism good. All these smooth-brained college graduates that are couldn't get a job fucking hawking coffee because they can't keep their fucking identity politics out of their bullshit day to day. You're in a service position. Your job is to serve. Nobody cares what you fucking think or feel. But ultimately, you get these smooth-brained fucks who are like, capitalism's evil and it fails. There is nothing capitalistic about the way most of the business in this country is conducted. There is ridiculous amounts of government interference, government oversight, and government forcing people to do things against their will and charging them for the fucking privilege. So, yeah, Trump coming in, setting up a tariff-based economy for the federal government would be fucking phenomenal. Cut that bitch in half. I mean, we're talking almost Millier levels of the chopping block at that point. Just under $2 trillion of lost revenue for the federal government. Now, they've already proven they can't fucking spend within their means, but they would be necessitated at that point. They would have to trim the fat. There would be no way around it. Now, do I think that's ever going to happen? No, it's a lovely proposition. It's a great idea. I don't see it happening. I see Congress and the system doing everything in its power to stop it from fucking happening. But the other problem I have with it is Trump's the biggest Achilles heel. The fucking weakness he has is his fucking ego. He still hasn't admitted that the way he handled COVID was a mistake. They're trying to take Fauci to fucking court about every goddamn lie he told during that whole pandemic. Trump still hasn't come out and said, you know what, I fucked up. I got some bad advice. I took things and I ran with it because I wanted to be the savior. And that's how they got him. That's how they manipulate this fucking guy. And they know that. They know how to aim and point him, then tell him he can't do something. Tell him something's going to be wrong. Tell him it'll make him look great in the history books, and he's going to fucking do it. And that's where the problem I have with this guy comes in. And it's the same problem I had with him last time. When he ran on the campaign of, I'm going to drain the swamp. I'm going to get the fucking career parasites out of DC. I'm going to make this system work, and I'm going to make America great again. And it's a great fucking pitch. The problem is he didn't do anything to actually fucking do it. He surrounded himself by career parasites, politicians. He didn't bring in new thinkers. He didn't bring in anybody with a new approach or a new idea. His entire cabinet was made up of people that were of the system. And then you wonder why nothing got fucking accomplished. Well, there you go. That's why in a fucking nutshell. He did do a few good things. He did secure the borders. He did get us energy independent. Those were not bad things. Howsoever, he really didn't do anything that enacted any lasting change. All you got to do is look at the first 100 days fucking the Roomba was in the fucking White House. I'm sure they were just putting blank executive orders in front of him. And everything Trump got accomplished got undone in a matter of fucking days. Literally 3 months. It was all undone. Every good thing he had done, because they wanted to erase him from the books as anything that, anything other than the system providing. They're trying to, actively rewrite history in front of us. And it's not as easy as it used to be in the old days because we're more connected than ever and we can talk more than ever. But it's not like we're ahead of the fucking curve here. We need to get back to some fundamental truths, and as fucking people, if we want to take our fucking power back, if we want to take the world back from these elitist motherfuckers who think they're better than you for whatever fucking reason. I can't think of any reasons. I'm sure that however they justify it to themselves that they somehow are entitled to the bullshit they receive in the name of fucking the entire planet. But you, me, the average motherfucker, we have this. We have, for lack of a better term, we have these underground communication channels of putting out podcasts. And yes, these are not really that underground. They're public air. But it's kind of like when I was a kid back in the late 80s, we had like pirate radio stations where people that would get ham radios and operate them unlicensed and play fucking whatever they felt like playing music and having whatever kind of ranty shit they wanted to ranty about. But those had a very limited range and a very limited reach, so it was always local stuff. And then now we've got the internet and we've got this stuff where we can broadcast around the fucking world. At least in as long as the servers that are being controlled allow us to do this. I mean, if it was a real threat, if they were really concerned that we might do something about it, I feel like they would shut it down. Make it something that only the select few had access to. And that might actually be enough to kick the whole fucking shitstorm off, which is probably why they don't do it. It's a lot easier to keep people turned on each other, fighting and biting at each other when you give them the illusion of freedom and the creature comforts and the ability to say, okay, my life is great because I have X, Y, and Z, and I have access to all these things that no one else in the history of man has had access to, and look how fantastic we are, and I have a smartphone and I can order my groceries from my house. Yeah, I'm never going to be able to actually own this house I rent because the interest rates are through the roof, because my economy, my dollar is worthless because the petrodollar is losing its power. The American currency is no longer the fiat currency for the country to just buy fuel oil with. So yeah, that bubble's getting really fucking flimsy at this point. And honestly, like I've said, I think it's deliberate. I don't think it's accidental. I think they want the U.S. dollar to collapse so they can introduce a central bank digital currency, and that way they can have literal full control over everything we do, say, and buy, and whether or not you get your groceries this week or whether or not you get your gas this week. As long as your social credit score is where it's supposed to be, you can have your gas to get back and forth to work, so they can take 40% of your paycheck, which is ironic because, it's not like they're doing 40% of your fucking work. So, yeah, we are, to borrow a phrase that a fucking scuzzbag socialist protester threw in my face at one point, we are literally wage slaves at this point. They want us just useful enough to be productive, but just lazy and content enough to sit here and fucking take it. And until we are willing to do something, until we're actually willing to rise up and face the discomfort that could come with it, that's what's going to happen. There's not going to be nobody's coming to fucking save us. That's what it boils down to. I feel like everybody's waiting for the third act to come where all of a sudden, and they market it and they capitalize it, and they're trying to spin Trump as the second coming. Oh, he's the one that's going to come along and save us. He's going to be the great green savior. Well, you know what? That orange motherfucker didn't accomplish saving the country the first time he was in office. He's not going to magically somehow be able to do it the second time, because even though we've got more individual, like senators, congressmen, starting to stand up and act like they got a fucking spine, the vast majority of them are bought and paid for and controlled by the uniparty. It's controlled opposition to each other so they can maintain this illusion of choice in the population and keep people under fucking thumb. There was a time where I would have considered all of this extremely crazy rhetoric. I would have said I was some fucking asshole in a tinfoil hat in his mom's basement talking shit into the internet, and just because I was too angry because I couldn't get laid. Now, things are a little different these days, but doesn't change the fact that this is all really starting to look like it makes sense. And I don't like the fact that it makes sense. I don't like the fact that we allowed ourselves to get to this position in the first place. I don't like the fact that the vast majority of this country is hanging all their hope on one Cheeto-dusted fucking person to come through and just come in and be Captain Save-A-Ho for all us weak, spineless individuals that aren't willing to stand up and take the fight to the fucking maggots that are in power. We're not willing to sit these assholes down and hold their toes to the fucking fire and make them act like they got some fucking sense. We outnumber them fucking 10,000 to 1 probably. I mean, I'd have to sit down and do the actual math and count up the number of fucking career parasites in office and divide that by the population, then subtract out the number of people that are perfectly content with this world going to hell because they're realistically useless individuals who contribute nothing themselves, so they actually feel better about having the world go to shit because then they don't look like such massive failure fuck-ups. But realistically, if the fight came to it, they're going to, we're going to fight, we're on the government's side. They're doing that so when the government, in their mind, inevitably wins, they will be catered to and taken care of, and they will be the chosen. Now, they don't realize that they're really not. They're the literal useful idiots the communists used to talk about. And once they've outlived their use, there's no reason to keep them around because then they're just a fucking drain on resources. Nobody's going to give a fuck about your gender study degree when we're out here trying to slave in the fields to feed the elites. So, it's just the refusal to learn from history that is ingrained in some of these people so well. And they're all these quote unquote educated people in this country because, those trade school guys that go out there and they know how to do shit. Well, they're just dumb. They're just a bunch of ignorant rednecks and they think they can take on the government with tanks and guns and all they got is a little fucking AR. And that's why we don't understand why you don't want to let us take them away to make the community safe, because it's not like you can fight the government with your little AR. And like the meme says, laughs in Taliban, laughs in Vietnamese, laughs in fucking Afghani, laughs in fucking ISIS. Take your pick. There's been plenty of instances where the U.S. government has been fighting against guys in pajamas and fucking sandals where we didn't really win. And now you factor in a bunch of good old boys that know the territory like the back of their hand because they've been hunting it since they were 4. They have wood skill, tradescrafts, and can build shit, fix shit, and survive off the land. You really think a bunch of drafted against their will Gen Z assholes are going to be able to take that out? Because let's face it, the U.S. military is not the powerhouse it used to be. The morale is in the fucking toilet. Recruiting is in the fucking toilet. Most of the ones that stuck around are just trying to get their 20-year paper from what I can tell. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that are still in there believing the fucking hype, and there's a whole lot of they-thems that know they're going to get a star on their chest for being so stunning and brave to come out as a woman after 60 fucking years of living as a man. But I might be over-embellishing it a little bit. But the other thing people forget is there are people in the military that don't agree with the way shit's going and will not actively fire on their own, fellow citizens. And there are plenty of retired vets that know how to operate the military equipment. They know how to get the military equipment. And more importantly, there is, all these military people in the U.S. have families, have friends, have connections, which is another reason why people talk about they're importing all these new people, because they're going to say, hey, you come fight in our army for, 5 years, you're automatically a citizen. And they've got no compunctions against firing on people that were here first if it means they're going to get their slice of the pie. So, again, that's dark conspiracy theory talk, but ultimately that's why I'm not super concerned about the prospect of a civil war actually breaking out. I think that's a lot of rhetoric. I think it might be, something that would not necessarily be a terrible thing. I mean, I don't want like a big civil war with like slaughter and millions of Americans dying, but a little revolution from time to time is good for the country. They said it when they founded the country. The tree of liberty must at times be refreshed with the blood of patriots and tyrants. And that means, both sides got to bleed for the thing to keep going. And, remind the people in control who's supposed to be working for who. But again, not necessarily something I would ever want to see happen. I'm just saying at this point, if they pushed it to that point, if it got to that point, it's not going to go the way either side fucking thinks. You got everybody on the one side saying, oh, yeah, well, the whole government, we're going to turn on and we're going to just drag them out kicking and screaming in the streets and we're going to show them what for. And goddamn it, all these they, thems and purple-haired motherfuckers are all going to show what's up that day. And we're just going to, it's going to be open season on fucking lefty commie freaks. And, you know, and some places I'm sure that would actually be the case, just due to human nature being what it is and people being kind of generally fucked up. I could totally see there being pockets of just horrendous shit done in the name of overcompensating for the utter ridiculous degree of horseshit that has been shoved down our throat for the last 15, 20 years. But conversely, I think most of us, once the initial shitstorm, whatever ridiculous global event would be required to kick off said results, would probably calm down relatively quickly. I mean, most of us deep down are decent people. You know, we're not out here actively looking for excuses. We're not just not killing each other because of social constraints. Well, I mean, in some cases that may be the case because if you look at a lot of places, particularly deep blue cities, go figure, big, deep urban environments without any kind of moral or social code, they're a lot more casual about whacking fucking people and just being worthless and spineless about how they deal with their problems. You know, when you're just spraying machine guns into a crowd because you're some fucking tweaked out gangbanger who places no value on life, because you actually, that becomes a self-worth issue. If you don't place any value on your own life, you're not going to put any value on anybody else's life. You lack empathy, you lack value, you lack direction, you lack guidance. I mean, now personally, my solution to the whole thing would be to take all these deep, dark blue Democratic strongholds and just wall the motherfuckers in and let them eat themselves, because that would more or less be the case. And honestly, I think that's probably how if a domestic altercation were to break out in this country, that would probably be the best way to approach it, is get all the globalist, elitist motherfuckers pinned down in one area and just leave them there. And do the whole Escape from New York thing. You know, you just turn the whole city into a fucking penal colony. And you make sure nobody gets in and nobody gets out. And then you just let it tear itself apart. But on the other hand, that may not be the case either. But ultimately, like I said, I'm more concerned that if they manage to beat any election tampering that's on the books, and if we manage to get through this election, and then we've got other dumb shit too. I mean, I'm gonna. This is very rambly today, but it's just the way my brain's working. I saw a quote with fucking Maxine Waters again. That worthless geriatric fucking stuck in the mindset of 1972. She's out here talking about, well, if the election doesn't go the right way, there's going to be violence in the streets. Now, she phrases these things. This is the same crazy bitch who said right-wing militias are training in the hills, and if Trump doesn't win, they're going to come down and start violence. And now she's talking about, regardless of how the election wins, there's going to be violence and people are going to die. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, is this her telling her leftist followers, you know, all the ones she was encouraging during the summer of love, that if Trump wins, there's going to be violence and people are going to die? Because realistically, that's kind of been the track record. They don't put up fences around the Supreme Court when they're going to make an announcement that's going to piss the right off. They do that when they're going to say something that bothers the lefties. They don't have track records of all these instances of looting and burning and killing and destruction anytime the right is referenced. They don't have anything to point to, so all they have is hypotheticals and crazy-ass rantings and threats from people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about, who actively encourage the same violent acts out of their own supporters, but it's different when it's done in their fucking name. It's utterly fucking hypocritical, but they're so just fucking indoctrinated with this bullshit. They're so brainwashed that they believe the shit that's coming out of their mouth. And these crazy wackadoo true believer motherfuckers are the real problem. They're the worst of all. Because I mean, I can kind of understand selling your soul for gold, but at the same time, these people are selling it for fucking ideology, and it's just ridiculous because the ideology is flawed and the fucking concepts are just proven false. I mean, fucking Maxine Waters is acting like we still got colored only fucking sections in the movie theater, and that every fucking white person is secretly out there waiting to fucking own them 3 black people, and that's what's going to happen if Trump gets elected, is we're all going back on the plantation. I mean, just stupid fucking shit. Anybody that's actually out there in the real world and interacting with people on a regular basis knows that is not the way the vast majority of people in this country think, act, or behave. But you've got these out-of-touch geriatric fucks holding the fucking steering wheel, steering on a course on a map that hasn't been valid in fucking 30 fucking years minimum. These people are out of touch, and somehow we keep letting them get back in the office. We don't do anything about it. We don't act on it. We don't actually enforce our will, the will of the people, on these fuck stains. We let them get away with whatever they want. And short of some miraculous Javier Milei level shit coming out of the fucking Cheeto, which I just don't see happening, he's too savvy of a businessman to fucking jeopardize his stance that fucking much, I think. Now, on the other hand, if he does actually get in the second term and he knows he can't get reelected for a third, who knows how, nuts he's willing to go. But I'm not holding my fucking breath, because he's already announced that the same person going to be in charge of his staff this go-round was the guy that was in charge of his staff the last go-round, and he did not surround himself with good people the last time, so I'm not optimistic about him surrounding himself with good people this time. I mean, I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the world starts to make sense again, because honestly, let's face it, the UN's pushing for actual armed conflict with Russia. Russia's blaming the U.S. for the Ukrainian strikes inside their territory. The U.S. is disavowing it, saying Ukraine makes their own military decisions, which is a fucking joke. But at the same time, all these warhawk motherfuckers are doing warhawk motherfucker shit to feed the military-industrial complex and make sure they feed the machines so they can get their kickbacks, they can get their good life, they can get their sweet life, and they're going to do it at the cost of our sons and daughters, because they are pushing for boots on the ground. They're pushing for fucking actual World War III open military conflict. And I'm concerned my sons would still have another year where he's eligible for the draft. I have friends whose children are in the service, and believe me, I'm always thinking about them. Thoughts and prayers don't mean dick, really, but for what it's worth, my sentiment is there. I think about your guys' kids that are in the service all the time, and I hope they stay safe and our fucking quote-unquote leadership doesn't do anything fucking stupid. Now, the other aspect about that is it's not the kind of warfare that all these geriatric fucks envision when they think about how the conflict is going to go. The world has evolved and changed. All you got to do is look at the footage coming out of Ukraine right now, which also brings me to something else I've been thinking about, but that'll be the next thing. There was footage that came up this week that was a Russian soldier who was out there being chased by a Ukrainian drone, and he finally stopped running and knelt down and said a quick prayer before the thing detonated and fucking injured him. And then his comrade came up and put a round in his head to put him out of his fucking misery. It kind of looked like at the request of the guy writhing around on the floor. But honestly, can you see a single Gen Z person in the United States of America having the fortitude to be able to do that to one of their brothers in arms? Or realistically, having the fortitude to run from the drone and then stop and try and get their soul right because they made peace with the fact they're about to die. You got a bunch of fucking people who are wounded by words and feel that their identification is, if you don't identify them the way they want to be identified, you're practicing violence on them, and you're a misogynist or a phobist or a bigot of some sort because you don't want to agree with their view of the world. And unfortunately, their view of the world is completely impractical from anything resembling a sense of survival. So if we were to enter to open conflict with Russia, China, North Korea, any of the assorted people posturing and as the battle lines are being drawn, not to mention all the African continents who are apparently sick of the Americans' influence as well. Once those battle lines are drawn, are you really still want to bet on our side? Yeah, we may be the most technologically advanced military in the fucking world. And I'm saying maybe because I'm sure there's a lot of stuff they don't tell us about. I'd like to think so. I mean, but the thing about that is, okay, it's not like the military-industrial complex is only playing to one side. No matter who's fighting, they win, right? And at the end of the day, if we're talking about, soldier quality, our troops versus their troops, my money's not on the youth of America making a real good showing of things. It's really not. I mean, it pains me to say it. It hurts my fucking soul to say this, but realistically, with the footage of drones being used as weapons now, taking out individual soldiers, tanks have basically become a fucking relic in terms of battlefield utility, because you can take a $2 million tank and have it completely taken out of service with a $500 fucking suicide drone, or any of our naval vessels where they, again, aircraft carriers are like a $3 billion boat, and you send a couple $1,000 suicide boats at it, or enough where it can't be counted. They could literally, for the same price, for a very relatively cheap price tag, if China decided they really wanted to fuck with the U.S. Navy, I'm willing to bet they could throw together 10,000 suicide boats, shoot 1,000 of them at an aircraft carrier all at once. Some of them are going to get through, and they're going to be able to take out that $3 billion floating city just in the most old-fashioned, archaic way possible, by punching a fucking hole in it because one or two boats managed to get through the fucking defenses. And from a cost-effective standpoint, it's the cost yield, the ratio on that is just way higher. So we're looking at an entirely different kind of warfare than what the system is used to. And I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not in the military, so I'm probably not privy to everything that's known about this. But ultimately, I really don't think the powers that be, the fucking warhawks that are controlling shit, are cognizant of the fact that the world has moved on. I think they live in their own little bubble where they will always be right. They will always have their finger on the pulse. They will always know exactly what they need to know to keep us in line and keep us doing what they fucking want. And that means they're also not noticing the change in tactics, the change in approach. I mean, the only constant throughout human history is we find new and interesting ways of killing each other all the fucking time. And we get better at it and better at it. And who knows? Now so we can't win this fight. And so they bring online an AI online to fucking start strategizing for us. And the next thing you know, maybe that's how you get Terminators. Who the fuck knows? But regardless, I don't see it going well for America as it stands today. So we have the options of either we get out there and actively do something, try and take our fucking country back, because I don't, honestly, to me personally at this point in my life, I don't know a single person in person who thinks the country's going the right fucking direction. I refuse to believe that nearly as many people that bitch about this actively do anything about it. So we got to do something about it. So start trying to take things back at a small local level. Start trying to be active. Stop waiting for somebody else to come and fucking save us, because it ain't fucking happening. The Cheeto is not the second coming. The world is not going to reset itself if the right person gets in fucking office when the entire system is the fucking problem. Well, I depress myself now. I guess I'm just going to wrap it up here, put a pin in it, and say for now, that's what I had to say. Thanks for listening to another episode, guys. If you liked what you heard, leave a comment, leave a review, leave a rating. Go to ihadtosayitpodcast.com, sign up for the mailing list, interact with the show. Click the links, sign up for the Patreon, join the Discord. Come and interact, be a part of the show. Buy the merch, support your favorite creator, or support me. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. Till next time.